What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Titletown Talk. I'm your host, Ian Ewing. On today's episode, we are going to review the Packers-Steelers from this past weekend. Our Green Bay Packers go into Pittsburgh after a brutal first half, causing the early stages of heart disease for me. They come out in the second half and score 29 points and completely shut down the Steelers on defense. Let's talk about the game. As frustrating as that first half was, this was probably their most complete game since week 2. And yes, I know the defense has been really bad this season for the Steelers. I get that. Their pass rush is not. So I said it coming into the game. I thought that we were going to lose this game basically because of what we saw in the first half. Pass rush getting home, the Packers defense getting leaky, and, bad penalties on defense as well. And I really did think they were going to lose the game because of that pass rush. Instead, the Packers offensive line stepped the hell up and played a phenomenal game. Again, I'm very surprised, obviously super relieved that happened, but I digress. Going into the game, like I said previously, I predicted the Packers to lose. I don't want this to ever get into a point where I'm just picking the Packers every week, guys. I hope I don't get to that point. You'll hear at the end kind of my ultimate prediction for the season, but I thought the Steelers' defensive line was going to tee off on the Packers. I thought they would play a poor game, but instead, that was the third game in a row. They had all their preferred starters back. They played that phenomenal pass rush, and outside of a few plays in the first half, I thought Jordan had all the time that he needed. The Packers outgained the Steelers 454 to 298, so yet again, the Packers' defense holds the opposing team under 300 yards. There was some leaky coverage out there. There was some bad reps against the run at times, but ultimately the Steelers didn't even gain 300 yards in this game. And if you can hold another team to 298 yards most weeks with the way this offense plays, you're going to win the game. The Packers averaged 7.2 yards per play. The Steelers were 5.2. The Packers had the time of possession as well, 32 minutes to 28, I believe. I don't have that in front of me. The Packers were 5 for 12 on third down. So ironically, going into the end of the first half, I believe they didn't convert a single third down in the first half. So as, bad as it felt in the first half, they come out in the second half and clearly improved dramatically. The Packer defense held the Steelers to a 1 for 10 on third down. So coming back, looking at last week, one of the reasons that Cardinals game was so frustrating is because the Cardinals converted a ton of third and longs last week. So I really wanted to see that, the Packers defense could hold up a bit better on third down, similar to the way they did the first 2 weeks of the season, right? They did that in this game. The most important stat of the game, though, I mentioned it in the pregame episode. I mentioned it several times this year. This defense is really, really good at creating turnovers, and the Packers didn't turn the ball over a single time. And the Steelers had one. So the Packers won the turnover battle in this one. Really, they should have had 2 fumbles. That grounding call of Rodgers was just dog crap. I mean, you guys know the one where he, just tosses the ball at Jaylen Warren's feet. But I digress. Let's get into our players of the game in this one. You got to start with Jordan Love. This is probably one of the best games Jordan's ever played. I haven't seen anything this good since the end of 2023. He'd never played this good at all last season at any point. Played this well, sorry. I think the Cowboys game in the playoffs was better, yes, but this was pretty damn close. In the first half, he made a ton of really good throws, but he had 3 really bad drops, right? And you think about it, he was 29 of 37. Add the 3 drops in there, 32 of 37, that would have been, 5 incompletions on the game? I mean, you just think about what could have been if those drops hadn't happened. You could argue there was a 4th drop, depending on how you view the catch Romeo Doubs could have had up the sideline, the back shoulder. Jordan was accurate as hell in this one. He was on time. At one point, he completed 20 passes in a row, and that's the first time any Packers done that since Brett Favre in 2007 in that magical season. Aaron Rodgers never did that once in his career. So again, this was just a really, really special performance from Jordan. His stats from a clean pocket this season are mind-blowing. So 86% completion. That's number 1 in the NFL. 1,484 yards, which is 4th, 13 touchdowns, which is 2nd, and he has a league best 135.8 passer rating. So if you guys are wondering, if you don't know passer rating stats, 158.3 or something like that is the highest passer rating possible. and he was 135.8. Now, where we haven't seen the best from Jordan is against the blitz and against pressure. In this game, he was blitzed several times. He completed 87.5% of his passes for 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks for a 137 rating. So, up until this game, when Jordan's been pressured, he struggled a little bit. And in this one, he was far from bad. He was credited with 1 big-time throw. He was not credited with any turnover-worthy plays. He was on fire tonight. I will say that deep completion to Christian Watson where he was, running right, throws across his body to the middle of the field. I hope he doesn't do that again. I'll just say that. Again, crazy that he can even throw a ball like that, 50 yards in the air on the run. And he did get it right over top of Juan Thornhill's fingertips. So again, it's hard to argue. That was a really good pass, but I hope that doesn't give him any false confidence. But regardless, man, this dude was on fire last night. You have to give him massive kudos. I know he mentioned after the game that there was a lot of pressure attached to this game. All the headlines with Aaron Rodgers, his mentor, all the headlines going into it. He wanted to show up and show out in this game. And again, it's funny because all the conversation before this game was a revenge game for Aaron Rodgers and blah, blah, blah. Nobody really talked about it from Jordan Love's angle. It felt like he was kind of the forgotten one in this, like, oh, he passed the torch. He was passed the torch. But nobody was saying like how bad Jordan wants to win this game and how well he wants to play. And to see him go out and play the way he did, probably his second best game ever, he did insanely well. And again, there's points where he could have forced the ball a bit more and you could see where his mind would go, right? He wants to show up in this game and, maybe force a few turnovers. He didn't. So Jordan Love's the player of the game by far. He's number 1 by a long shot. Number 2, though, Tucker Kraft, guys. Now I'm recording this, I believe, I wrote my notes before last night's game. Obviously, I don't remember if anybody beat this or not, but Tucker Kraft at the time had the most receiving yards in the entire NFL in Week 8. He finished this game with 7 catches for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is absolutely ludicrous for a tight end. Now, again, that's a wide receiver game. That's a really good wide receiver game. No wide receiver had more receiving yards this week than him. Again, I don't know if anybody beat him last night. I don't think they did. He's currently averaging 15 yards per catch this season. That is crazy for a tight end. For perspective, the year that the Packers had, Marquez Valdez-Scantling running deep shots the entire season in 2020, he averaged 19 yards per reception. So again, just the fact that Tucker Kraft is averaging 15 at the tight end position, these are typically guys who catch 3-yard digs and screens, and then they get what they can get, and then they're tackled, right? The dude's just playing out of his mind this year. He's leading the league in yards after catch, which you saw in this game. I know I talked about it in the Bold Predictions episode, and I really want to revisit that at the middle point of the season because I do feel like my predictions have been pretty damn good. One of them was Tucker Kraft would get an all-pro vote this year. All-pro votes, I should say. I think that prediction is obviously looking pretty good right now, but and we'll talk about it in a minute. I think he's the best tight end in the NFL right now. He had the off-schedule catch where Jordan was hit. He was throwing a sort of a flag pattern to Tucker Kraft. He was one-on-one with the safety. And, Jordan threw that ball. He got it out there to him. Obviously, if he wasn't hit, that would have looked a lot better. But again, not only the awareness to find the ball for Tucker with it in the air, but then to grab it and run it 30-plus yards. It was just absolutely incredible, guys. Like, I cannot stress to you enough how good of a game that was from Tucker Kraft. I was texting my aunt, and Julie, if you're listening to this, you'll remember this. I remember back in 2023, the Packers played the Chargers, and Julie was at my house watching the game. And there was a play where Tucker caught an out route, and he ran it up the sidelines. And I know Julie, again, not a NFL analyst by any means, right? We were both she was like, that is a crazy play, right? I'm like, yes, it's absolutely crazy. And, I'm not saying I'm an NFL analyst either, but like you could see in that game, like Tucker's going to be a star in this league. And at that point, we saw Luke Musgrave getting all the number 1 reps. And it's funny because, she texted me after the game, Tucker, Julie, again, if you listen to this, what's up? But again, what I would say is the way that he's ascended in essentially 2.5 seasons is just unprecedented. I want to just say this too, guys. I watched a ton of training camp coverage in 2023. Everybody who was at camp in 2023 said Tucker Kraft looked horrible. He looked lost. He looked overwhelmed. And for him to come up and essentially become the best NFL tight end right now, nobody's playing better than him. I can say that for sure. This point, the number one wide receiver talk, like who's the Packers' number one wide receiver? Well, it's Tucker Kraft, and he's not a receiver. He's a tight end. He's getting open against man. He's finding zone coverage perfectly. He's, like I said, he's beating man-to-man press coverage. He's getting open at a crazy clip. When he catches the ball, he's getting an average of 11.2 yards after catch. That's crazy. Absolutely insane, guys. For context, Marshall Faulk, back in maybe 1999, I think he was averaging about that as a running back, which, again, running backs are supposed to average a lot of yards after catch. So, again, I cannot hype up Tucker Kraft enough. Currently, he's pacing for 1,139 yards receiving with 72 catches and 14 touchdowns, which would be bonkers. Now, I don't know if he reaches that, as you guys have seen. Sometimes he's kind of an afterthought in the game, but I certainly wouldn't be looking at it as an afterthought anymore. And I think other teams, I don't know how you defend this offense, guys. I really don't. Especially when they get Jaden Reed back. I'm telling you guys, we've seen 80% of what this offense can do. And that's why, all the talk about the defense, and we'll get there at some point, right? We'll talk about it in a minute. All the talk about the defense is irrelevant. They only need to be top 15 if their offense is playing right, and they're going to win the Super Bowl with that. So I just really like what we're seeing. Tucker breaking out like this. He's going to get a lot more attention. He's certainly getting a lot more national attention after this game. But I think he's an all-pro at this point. No tight end is playing better than him right now. I think Brock Bowers is better, but Brock Bowers has been hurt, and he's only in his second year. Who knows if maybe he regresses a little bit to the mean, but I'm telling you guys, special day from Tucker Kraft. He balled out in this one, and his ascension to the top of the NFL is happening as we speak. Next guy, Christian Watson. This was Christian's first game back from injury. A reminder, he tore his ACL in the final game of last season. So in January, he's been out for 9 months? I did not expect him to play more than maybe 15 snaps in this one, and he played 31. He had that huge catch up the right sideline right at the end of the half to get them in field goal range. Obviously, McManus missed that, which was so frustrating, by the way. And then he broke free on the deep ball in the late third quarter, the one that, Jordan hit him across the middle. There was a catch up in the middle. I think it was just a slight in route in the fourth quarter, and one of their final drives where he got open, caught a couple of out routes, got some yards. He just looked like he never got hurt. When I watched the All-22, guys, he looks faster than he's ever looked. His routes look way better. Clearly, he worked on route running in the offseason. He was separating at a really high level in this one. He caught every target, no drops. And then the most important thing, guys, he's solely responsible for Tucker Kraft's first touchdown with the way he blocked. I know you guys have probably heard this already. Maybe you haven't. But he is one of the best blocking receivers in the NFL. And the Packers wide receivers have to block. And that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen more Matthew Golden, by the way, because he's still kind of a poor blocker. Also, reminder, and if you didn't know this, here's a reminder quick. The Packers average 7 more points a game when he's healthy versus when he's not. So getting him back, it's getting him back is one thing. Yeah, he's taking the top off. He's carrying safeties out of the middle, right? All the stuff he does outside of the box score. That's impressive enough, but he ended up with 4 catches for 85 yards, and again, he just looked really clean in this game. Another guy we need to talk about, Carrington Valentine. Man, after last week, we talked about it at length on the recap. Last week, Nate Hobbs played terrible. Myself and many other people were telling, our TVs, or Matt LaFleur through our TVs, put in Carrington Valentine. All we heard all week was, we believe in Nate Hobbs. He's going to be fine. We think he's going to bounce back, all that. They benched him. They literally benched him. And this is why you cannot take anything seriously in these press conferences, guys. I know you probably figured this out by now, but, they sometimes will give you a grain of truth. Maybe they do believe in Nate Hobbs, but they needed to give Carrington Valentine a chance. And with the way Nate Hobbs played last week, I thought there would be a rotation. I think every Packer fan thought there might be a rotation. Carrington Valentine played the whole damn game. Nate Hobbs played 1 real snap, 3 total. those 2 snaps that he played, the 2 that weren't counted, they essentially were because they were nullified by penalty. So Carrington Valentine played the entire game opposite of Keyshawn Nixon. I thought he played a really good game. We had a couple really nice plays in run support, blew up one of those screens to Calvin Austin. Again, his best play, though, and this is a massive play in the game, especially when you look at the final score. Rodgers threw it deep, one-on-one. He was one-on-one with DK Metcalf. The ball gets all the way into DK Metcalf's hands, and Carrington Valentine broke it up in the end zone. That was one of the biggest plays of the game that no one's been talking about. And there's almost zero chance that if Keyshawn Nixon was over there that he would have knocked it out. I'm telling you guys. Keyshawn Nixon, he's got some PBUs this year. And we'll talk about him in a little bit. I just don't think that Keyshawn Nixon breaks up that pass. I really don't. And again, I don't want to bury him too much. We'll talk about it in a minute. But, Carrington Valentine, I think he showed in this game he's the best cornerback on this team. He did a good job in run support, like I said, which has been his struggle. When I looked at the All-22, he got beat a few times. He missed a couple of tackles. He didn't score incredibly high with PFF, but overall, I really liked how he played. I know they paid Nate Hobbs. I still think that in, the obvious passing downs, Nate Hobbs should be in the slot instead of Javon Bullard. And I think when they play a team with more than one viable wide receiver, the Steelers have one guy at this point. I do think we see him a little bit more in the slot, but they have to keep playing Carrington Valentine. I think he impressed the crap out of me in this game, and he deserves a ton of credit. Edgerrin Cooper, I thought my boy Cowboy Coop probably played his best game since week 2 in this game. Again, he was flying all over the field. It just felt like he had been a little bit of he's kind of been quiet the last 5 games, I want to say. And not that he's played bad by any means, but, and I shouldn't say 5 games, like 3 games, sorry. He just hasn't played that like all pro level that we had hoped. And, we did see that in the first 2 weeks. There were a few plays in this game where he got lost in the run game. He shot the wrong gap. Again, his aggressiveness can kind of hurt him at times because, again, he's hungry. The dude wants to hit. He wants to break up, and every run play he wants to be in the backfield, right? Which is good. But there were a couple plays where he, got lost a little bit. But he played great in coverage. I do think we're going to see a bit of a return to form for him in the next coming weeks. And I'm excited to see it, honestly. Next guy, Rashawn Gary. I mentioned in the pregame episode they needed someone else to step up opposite of Micah. We'll kind of talk about this in a minute too, but the Steelers had a really good plan to slow down Micah Parsons in this game. Now, they only can slow him down so much, but they needed another guy to step up. LVN's out. Devontae Wyatt's coming back from injury, which was good that he played. But Rashawn Gary needed to play well in this game, and he did. He played very, very well. He had 2 sacks in this game. That means he's up to 7.5 on the season. So essentially that means he's pacing for 18 sacks this season, which would be awesome for him. Again, bold prediction coming true. One of my bold predictions was he was going to finish over 10 sacks this season for the first time. He's only 2.5 away. He's definitely going to hit that. Last but not least, probably the unsung hero of this game, Emmanuel Wilson. The Packers massively struggled again in this game to run block. It does feel like, and if you look at the Steelers historically, their plan on defense is always to stop the run, stop the run, stop the run. They played a bunch of single high in this game, and I think their game plan was indeed to stop the run. They identified pretty early that Josh Jacobs was not going to beat them in this game. That said, in the second half, when Jordan started toasting their secondary, they brought that safety back a bit more. And, the Packers wanted to take advantage. And I thought Emmanuel Wilson stepped up massively. The final 3 scoring drives, he was in at running back basically for all those. Had some really, really, really nice runs. The blocking was definitely better, but he ended up with 11 carries for 63 yards. So essentially he was over 5 yards a carry. There was a little dump off where he was a check down on the first touchdown drive in the third quarter where he got like 13 yards on it. When the Packers went to run it and close out the game, it was Emmanuel Wilson who was in there. And I thought he played really, really well, came up huge in that role. I know I've said this a couple times, probably, I think I said it in the podcast. I think Emmanuel Wilson's going to be, at some point, maybe not next year, but the year after, he's going to be their primary running back. And I think he's going to be Josh Jacobs' replacement. I think we've started to see that on this season so far. He's a really, really good player. I think he's got a bright future. And I can't say enough about how well he played in this game. Let's break down the offense as a whole. Starting with the top 5 graded players from PFF, Tucker Kraft was number 1 with a 93 overall grade. So again, highest grade a tight end has scored all season for the PFF guys. again, played out of his damn mind. He did have one drop in the second quarter for a first down. So he would have been over 150 yards with 8 catches if he made that one. And that was, by the way, it was a pretty brutal drop. So, again, everybody makes mistakes. I not expect a perfect game from him, but he made every other play, and every time that he caught the ball, he made the most out of it. Number 2 is Jordan Morgan. He played 29 of 64 snaps. So he scored at 83.5 from them. So this was back to the rotation thing this week. So Sean Ryan and him basically went half and half in this game. Basically, Jordan Morgan took over the right guard spot last week. Sean Ryan barely played last week. So he pass blocked really, really well. So he had an 84 pass blocking grade, only a 60 in run blocking. And Sean Ryan also, by the way, but they were getting blown up quite a bit in the run game from Cam Hayward and Derek Harmon. Keanu Benton absolutely demolished him on a sweep. There were a couple plays where you just wanted to see more from a run blocking standpoint. I do think that it's the guards right now that are the reason the run blocking hasn't been better. The guards and Elton Jenkins at center. But again, you like to see that from Jordan Morgan. Pass blocking is something that the Packers need more than run blocking, and I think we'll talk about it in a little bit, but their passing game is the most important part of this team right now. So again, Jordan Morgan being good at pass protection in this one, that's a big win for the Packers. Number 3 was Jordan Love with an 81.1 grade. I won't glaze over Jordan too much more here. Currently, though, he's pacing for 31 touchdowns and only 5 picks with 4,400 yards, which, again, that's worthy of MVP discussion. He's currently 5th in the league in odds behind Mahomes, Allen, Darnold, Daniel Jones even. So I do think I don't know who predicted this. I think it might have been Aaron Nagler from Cheesehead TV that after this game, we were going to start hearing MVP rumble from Jordan Love. And it's funny because he does seem to play better later in the season, and we haven't even reached that point, and he's playing out of his mind right now. So I think that we're only going to see – I think his best this season is yet to come, and that's insane to say out loud. Zach Tom, 80.1. He went into the game – again, he's definitely still hurt. They took him off the injury report from his oblique and changed it to a back injury. But we went into the game. I told you guys, Zach Tom was going to shut down TJ Watt, and he certainly did that. He did allow 3 pressures, but from what I could tell, those 3 pressures came on blitzes. His pass blocking grade was only 57, ironically. So I don't know where those grades came from, to be honest. I thought he did fine in it. Again, as you guys know, I'm not a offensive line expert by any stretch, but he did have to leave the game for a little bit. I'm wondering if maybe that had something to do with it. He was feeling a little bit of pain, but he had a 94 run blocking grade in this one. So very, very well done in that aspect. And again, did you guys hear TJ Watt's name once? I don't want to take a victory lap here, but I'm telling you, dude's super overrated. And Packers blocked up everybody really well in this game, which we'll talk about in a second. Christian Watson was number 5, 79.9. Again, we talked about Watson earlier. What a comeback for him. He's only going to get better and better. As long as he stays healthy, I think we're going to see the best season yet from Christian Watson. Quick honorable mention, the offensive line in general, guys. I cannot stress enough how well they played. Rasheed Walker didn't give up a single pressure in this one against Nick Herbig, by the way. He absolutely shut Nick Herbig down. And when you look at Rasheed Walker historically, he does do a bit better against speed rushers. So I didn't really think about that coming into the game, but that doesn't super surprise me when I kind of look at it from that angle. Aaron Banks only allowed 1 pressure. Elton Jenkins allowed 3, and again, that's Cam Hayward up the middle, and he played a good game in this one. Elton Jenkins, he's played better since he was kind of called out a couple weeks back, but we still really haven't seen that really high-level play from Elton. I think eventually we're going to see it. I think he's still getting used to playing center again, and, we're only in 7 games in, and there's still 9 left, so I do think that we'll see the best from him coming up. Jordan Morgan allowed 0 pressures. Again, you heard the pass blocking grade earlier. It showed up in his pressure allowed. Zach Tom, again, 3. So against a very, very talented pass rush, they gave up 7 pressures. They deserve a lot of credit. And quite frankly, if they can build on this and carry it forward, that's going to be really, really big. I don't think they face another dominant pass rush like this until they play the Broncos later. The Broncos, in my opinion, are the best defense in the NFL, and they do play them I think in week 12 or 13. So obviously there's a little bit of concern there. That's a great pass rush, but this is the second best one they'll face. And there's nobody in the NFC that they're going to be facing that's better than this Steelers pass rush. Maybe the Rams if you squint really, really tight. But again, it's a tale of two halves in this game. Going into the third quarter, I was really, really frustrated. They only got 7 points in the first half, and they just were not finishing drives. And I think Jordan said that in his post-game presser. They just were not finishing. After watching the tape, there were, again, 3 really bad drops on third down. They were 1 for 5 on third down in the first half. So, again, those would have made it look a lot better. All 3 of those drops were for first downs. And I thought LaFleur's game plan was really stupid in the first half. I know I feel like I've been pooping on LaFleur a lot lately, but I just think he's just so damn smart and he's such a good offensive mind that he just overthinks everything. They were running a lot of like longer developing routes and they were trying to challenge these corners deep and it just was not working. The majority of the pressure the Steelers got, it was in the first half. And that's going to happen when you send Jordan back on 5-step drops, throwing the ball 20 yards downfield. You know, when the second half came, they switched to their quick game, which is what I thought they should have done all along. They got the ball out quick. They took what the defense gave them, and then they made the most of their opportunities when they caught the ball, right? It started to work, and in the second half, they outscored the Steelers 28-9. So on top of the long developing routes, the second down runs just killed them. I know Justice Mosqueda tweeted this out, and he's right. LaFleur, his goal seems to be get into third and short every single series. And yeah, you prefer third and short as opposed to third and long, but why do you always have to get into third down? Right? I mean, why not just not ever get to third down? Throw the damn ball on second down. Why make it harder on yourself? Because you're only going to convert so many of those, right? I just didn't like the play calling mix, and they were just trying to force feed the run a little bit too much. I thought the Steelers clearly came to play in that regard, and Jordan was on fire in this game, right? I think LaFleur leaned into that when they figured out, like, yeah, Jordan's going to win this game for us. And it was just a little bit frustrating. Again, once they made the switch, things opened up like crazy. I know a lot of other podcasters have said this, and I think it's very true, and I want to highlight it quick. Their entire game plan since they signed Josh Jacobs, and again, it's funny because when they had Aaron Jones, and I know Josh Jacobs is better than Aaron Jones. I know it's controversial to say, but it's true. They always, since Josh Jacobs came here, they seem to run to set up the pass. And ultimately, I think they need to do the opposite. I think they need to pass to set up the run. And late in the third and fourth quarter, that's when Emmanuel Wilson started to get a lot more room, and that's when they pulled that safety back. So, and I'd love to know this, and I don't know the answer, but how many teams so far have come in with the plan to stop Josh Jacobs, full stop? I think the majority of them have. And I think after this game, and maybe this opens up the run game, this game showed Jordan Love is probably their best. He is their best player in offense, and he's playing the best out of everybody. And their weapons are playing well. I don't know that they should be going into games anymore saying, we need to stop the run. That might actually help the run game, right? But again, pass to set up the run. That's how it worked in the Super Bowl season for the Packers. When you have a top 10, top 5 maybe quarterback in Jordan Love, let him throw the damn ball, right? Lastly, they didn't really have any penalties, if any, on offense. So that's a massive, right? Another clean game for them. And again, they didn't turn the ball over. That was another huge key to this game going in. Jordan needed to take care of the ball, and they did that. The Packers' speed and offense, it's next level. And when you're facing a defense like the Steelers, who's a bit old and slow, this is what you get, right? So really good game on offense. Currently, the Packers are 5th in the league in scoring and 7th in yards per game. So again, this is climbing dramatically after that Browns game. I think we're only going to see it get higher. Let's flip over to the defense. Top 5 graded players on defense from PFF. Rashawn Gary was number 1 with 83.1. They credited him with 5 pressures and 2 sacks. He also had 2 TFLs in this one, tackles for loss. Just really, really good game from him all around, right? He also had a 70 run defense grade. So he was above average in run defense and a 77 pass rush grade. So somebody else needed to step up outside of Micah Parsons, and Rashawn Gary did that and then some. Number 2 is Edge Cooper with an 80.9. I mentioned it earlier, right? I thought he played a great game. We talked about him earlier. He was definitely better in coverage in this game than he was in run defense, but he needed to be. And we talked about it going in. Those tight ends are no joke from the Steelers, right? And there were a couple plays that they tried to get Freiermuth open on crossers, and Edge Cooper just took it away completely. They also tried a play where they snuck out Darnell Washington, sort of on a wheel route up the left side, And Edge Cooper picked it up perfectly. I think that's really why he got such a good grade in coverage, because that could have been a touchdown. And Rodgers couldn't throw it. He also almost picked off Aaron Rodgers. There was one, it could have been a pick six, man. He read this little out route perfectly. And he broke on the ball and he dropped it. It would have been a tough catch, but that would have been a huge play in this game. I think Edge Cooper is, back to what he was doing early in the season. Number 3, Xavier McKinney, 72.1. Again, you don't see a lot of stats on the sheet for McKinney, but 83.7 tackling grade. He showed up, he covered up a ton of deep shots in this game. There was a play in I think it was the second Rashawn Gary sack. They were trying to hit a deep ball to DK, and McKinney was the sole reason why Aaron couldn't throw it, because Nixon was trailing behind him, and then McKinney came back over the top and cut it off. And if Rodgers had thrown that, it would have been 2-on-1. Maybe DK makes that play because he's a freak, but you would have been an idiot to throw it. And before he could really make that decision, he was sacked. So again, another really good game for McKinney, despite being quiet. Number 4 was Javon Bullard, 69.1. Another good game for Bullard. He's having a sneaky strong season, and he's a total menace in the run game. He plays well against, now again, he's never going to win one-on-ones against top receivers in the slot, but that's not really what they have most of the time. A lot of times they put the slower guys in the slot, the twitchier guys. He's done pretty well in this one. And again, like I said, in the run game, he's a menace. And then number 5, Devontae Wyatt, 68.5. First game back from injury. He ended up with 3 pressures in this one. I thought he made a couple of really good plays against the run. Not a great game from Wyatt, but you're happy to have him back. He's only going to get better from here. Quick honorable mention, Carl Brooks, 67 grade in this one, 3 pressures. And then again, Carrington Valentine, just to mention him quick, he didn't score great from PFF. 67 coverage grade, which is good, but I thought he played a lot better than the numbers said he did. And that DK Metcalf breakup was, in hindsight, one of the biggest plays of the game. Let's talk about Micah Parsons really quick. This was probably his worst game as a Packer, especially from a grading standpoint from PFF. They still credit him with 5 pressures. He was pretty disruptive in this game still. He ended up with a 58 grade in pass rush, which again, below average. That's probably a bit dramatic. The Steelers had a nice plan against him. They essentially said, this dude is not going to have another 3-sack game. We're not going to let him beat us. We're going to put 3 guys on him at times, right? The second half, he started to break through a little bit. They really found some success using him as like a up-the-middle speed rusher, like almost as a linebacker. And I think that's something they need to do a lot more. And I think they realize, like, if we're going to get pressure on Rodgers quickly, it needs to come from the middle, like I mentioned in the pregame show, by the way. And I do think that ended up helping them quite a bit. And there were a couple plays where he was literally triple teamed, guys. When you triple team a guy, everybody else in the defensive line has one-on-ones. And the Packers guys have been winning them, right? Rashawn Gary won a lot of reps. Carl Brooks won 3. Devontae Wyatt won 3. We're only going to see better from this as we go. The defense as a whole, frustrating moments. They gave up 5 yards per carry in the run game, but ironically, just like every other game this season, the Steelers kind of went away from it as the game wore on. In the first half, they held the Steelers to 3 field goals up until right at the end of the second quarter. These field goals were all over 50 yards. I know 2 of them were for sure. There are only so many kickers in the NFL who are going to make 3 field goals over 50 yards in a game. Chris Boswell's a really, really good kicker. The touchdown drive before the end of the half, a lot of it was due to a penalty from Keyshawn Nixon. It was a holding call that I thought was totally BS. Not that I want to bring the refs into this. I feel like I've been bringing the refs into it a lot, but I digress. That was really the only long drive the Steelers had the entire game, and it was aided by penalties, some frustrating coverage refs, some Nixon. We'll talk about him in a minute. But here are the Steelers' drives in the second half. Let me just read these to you guys. So the second half started with a 3 yards, 2 plays punt, 7 plays, 39 yards field goal. So that's a decent drive, right? So they essentially took the game to 19-14 at that point. Then the Packers went 10 plays, 78 yards, went ahead 22-19. And here are the rest of the Steelers' drives in the third quarter. 3 plays, negative 3 yards punt. 3 plays, negative 9 yards punt. 2 plays, 3 yards fumble. And then finally, they had a 9-play, 70-yard drive with 1 minute and 52 seconds left in garbage time to bring it to a 10-point game. So it's like, it felt bad and leaky in the first half. In the first half, though, I'll read them out quick too, right? It was 7 plays, 42 yards, field goal. And then there was the 3-play, 2-yard punt in the first quarter. 6 plays, 21 yards field goal. 9 plays, 35 yards field goal. And then, there was the touchdown drive. 9 plays, 84 yards, touchdown. So really, there were only 2 drives that were over 40 yards. And they were both touchdown drives. One was in garbage time and one was at the end of the half, aided by penalty. So I don't think the defense played as bad as it felt at times. And believe me, I was frustrated as hell. So from a pressure standpoint, here's a really, really insane stat for you guys. And this is important. They only blitzed 1 time on Sunday. The Packers blitzed 1 time and they got 18 pressures. So that means the majority of the pressure came from rushing 4 guys. And this is why you get Micah Parsons, right? The best teams in NFL history, all the Super Bowl winners you can point back to, even the Packers in 2010, right? They all get pressure with 4 guys. So they get 18 in this game, only blitzing once. That's with Wyatt coming back from injury. He's not 100% yet. And they're still without Lucas Van Ness, who is in the middle of his breakout season, right? Brooks has improved as a pass rusher. I think Colby Wooden, he's broken out this season. He had a bad game yesterday, but I digress. We're only going to see better from Barron Sorrell. We've already seen Warren Brinson, which he was inactive in this one. I think that will change as we go. There's a lot of guys. Kingsley Enagbare, I didn't even put him in my notes, but he played insanely well in this game. Let me pull up his grade really quick because he didn't play a ton of snaps, but when he did, he had an 80.9 grade in this game. He was a 74-1 in run defense, and he was 62.7 in pass rush. He did get 2 pressures himself. There was a couple plays he just completely blew up in the second half for the Steelers, right? And he's your 4th pass rusher. So, the Steelers' tackles, they're not good. We talked about it. But they're not bad either, right? They haven't given up a sack the last 2 games. They gave up 3 in this one. So as frustrating as the defense has been, there were some really strong performances in this one against a quarterback who wanted to come out and absolutely destroy this team. And let's just quick touch on that quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. He played about as well as he could, given the circumstances. Circumstances meaning his team just didn't show up with him, especially on defense. It was really, really fun to watch him. Every chance I get to watch him, I do. Even last season when he played for the Jets, I watched a few games. I think this game went as well as you could hope in terms of him playing well but not playing well, if that makes sense. It was just fun to watch. I'm going to miss seeing Aaron. Report came out that the Steelers want him to come back next season. I do think that the Packers might, depending on where the Steelers finish, they might actually play them again next season. I'm not positive on that. But anyway, last thing I want to touch on, Keyshawn Nixon and the cornerbacks. All I've been seeing in the comments, every subreddit, every YouTube video that's been talking about the Packers, Packer fans are commenting on it saying, the cornerbacks are bad. I was insanely frustrated in this game myself. I was yelling at the TV to get Nixon out of the game. I mean, he tightened up a little bit in the second half, right? But I am a little bit concerned still about this cornerback room. I think they need to take a hard look at making a move at the deadline. And I know this has been mentioned. I think I mentioned it here on the podcast. They don't make a move like this for Micah Parsons unless you're willing to go all in the next 2 seasons. And if you have a leaky position, the only one, by the way, that has any sort of weakness is the cornerbacks on defense. And again, I'll just reiterate, bringing back Jair Alexander would not have helped. He's been brutal this season when he's even played for the Ravens. We just saw Roger McCreary get moved from the Titans to the Rams. And the Rams cornerbacks are terrible, by the way. So this was a good move for them. They only gave up a 5th-round pick, and they got a 6th-round pick back with McCreary. So he's a good player. So I do think there's some options out there. They've already been linked to a couple guys. They were actually linked to McCreary as well. So you have to think that Goody's looking at the cornerback market. They definitely need to get more bodies in there regardless. So I do think that, and I'm not one to start slinging picks for corners, but you got to take a hard look at it. You don't want the cornerback room to be the reason you lose in the playoffs against a team with good receivers. Now, there's already been rumors that the Eagles want to move on from A.J. Brown, which is ludicrous. But, I mean, please trade him to an AFC team. Get him the hell out of that team. That just makes me feel even better about the Eagles at that point, or worse if you're an Eagles fan. But anyway, I think they got to look at some different options in the trade market. We'll talk about that during the week because the trade deadline is next Monday, so we do need to talk about it. Let's do a quick summary going forward here, okay? Currently, the Packers are still the number 1 seed in the NFC. They're only second to the Lions in Super Bowl odds. I do think that will eventually come back to earth a little bit. I think the Lions are still desperately looking for a pass rusher outside of Hutchinson, and they don't have it. I really like what they did in that game last week against the Buccaneers, but the Buccaneers have been a bit fake this whole year. And, a lot of Calvin Benjamin, whatever their defensive coordinator's name is, he's now the next hot name in defense. Like, I'll believe it when I see it. And I'm trying to be as unbiased as I possibly can be. I think the Packers can beat any team in the NFL. But depending on how many mistakes they make, they can also lose to any team in the NFL, including the bad ones. They can lose these top contenders at any point, but they can also beat them. And I think they match up the best against all of them. The only one that scares me is the Rams. And I know I said last week the Seahawks scare me. They do, but the Rams have Devontae and they have Puka. Their offensive line's been pretty good this season, and Matt Stafford's been playing out of his mind. And on defense, they got really good pass rushers, which could give the Packers offensive line problems. This is why it's so important to get home field and win that division, and you have a high seed. Because the Rams will not beat the Packers in Green Bay, but if the Packers have to go to LA, that's really, really nerve-wracking. So as far as their upcoming games, they got the Panthers this week coming up. The Panthers just got completely boat raced by the Buffalo Bills, and I know Andy Dalton was playing, but ironically, Andy Dalton looked better than Bryce Young last year at points. The Packers are still big-time favorites. The game's at home. I do think they should beat them pretty handily. But the Panthers are a sneaky good team. They can run the ball effectively. They've actually played some good defense in stretches this season. And we all remember the 2023 game against the Green Bay Packers, right? They almost beat us. And that was before Bryce Young was playing better, right? It took a game-winning drive from Jordan to win that game. Crazy throw to Dobbs up the left sideline, if you guys want to watch the highlights in that one. Then after that, it's Eagles-Packers, Monday Night Football at home. I cannot wait for that one. It's going to be a ton of fun. I know I said it a few weeks back. The Packers are going to win that game. It's going to be their best game of the season. I promise you guys that. Then they have the Giants away, which is a sneaky tough game. That Giants pass rush is nasty. But from a passing game standpoint, as much as I like Jackson Dart, the Packers should have their way on defense in that one. So they should win that game as well. Then it's the Vikings at home. I think the Vikings are a really bad team. I know I said it to anyone who would listen to me in the pregame working up to the season, right? Preseason. There were so many analysts who I respect, by the way, that were saying the Vikings have one of the best rosters in the NFL. I know Dan Orlovsky, who I really like, was saying that. Yeah, on offense, they got good receivers, really good receivers. They got Christian Darrisaw. But outside of that, they really don't have anybody. And I love Aaron Jones, but he's not going to take over a game anymore. And then on defense, they have average at best talent across the field. With the exception, I think Andrew Van Ginkel is a really good player. I like Jonathan Grenard as well. He's been a bit quiet this season as well. But their coordinator has gotten them through a lot of bad stretches, right? And there's only so much that you can do with scheme. And at some point, talent has to take over. And you saw it in the playoffs last year when the Lions destroyed the Rams. So again, I just don't think the Vikings are good. They're probably going to win like 6 games this season. And Carson Wentz, who they actually looked competent under Carson Wentz, is out now. And now it's J.J. McCarthy, who I thought looked brutal in the first couple games. Outside of that comeback against the Bears, who self-destructed, right? So I have no fear of the Vikings. And then finally, the fourth game away from here is the Lions in Thanksgiving in Detroit. That's probably their toughest matchup of the season at this point. Currently, they're 5-1-1, right? My prediction is they lose 3 more games this season. They lose to the Lions away, the Broncos away, and I'm probably going to get dragged for this, but I bet the Bears beat them once as well, just because I think they got a fluky win in them somewhere. So ultimately, I think the Packers finished 12-4-1. By the way, this was an answer to a question. A person asked me the question, what's the Packers record going to be? 12-4-1 is my prediction. That's a really good season for the Packers. That should give them the NFC North. Very well could give them the NFC overall 1 seed as well. I think they need to win 13 games to get that. And I think they can. They certainly can beat the Bears. I'm not saying they're going to lose to them. That Broncos game looks scary, and I think that Lions game is really, really tough too. So anyway, that'll do it for the episode today. I appreciate you guys listening. We will be back to preview the Panthers-Packers in Green Bay on Sunday. Noon game. I'm excited for it. We will talk about it this week. And I will talk to you guys then. Until next time, and as always, go Pack, go.